Speciation Extinction and the Origin of Earth. Let me see what's going on here. There we go. So what is a species? A species is a group of interbreeding individuals. So in order for two organisms to be members of the same species, they have to be able to successfully produce offspring. And the offspring have to be able to be viable. Each species name combines the broader classification genus with the term species. The scientific name for humans, for example, is Homo sapiens. Homo is the genus name, sapiens is the species name. Now when we talk about animals that look kind of similar and are able to interbreed, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are from the same species. Like a horse and a donkey are from different species. They have different numbers of chromosomes, so when they produce offspring, their offspring are sterile. The lion and the tiger. Again, with lions and tigers, they are different species because most of the time their offspring are infertile. Speciation is the formation of new species, and that occurs when some individuals can no longer interbreed with the rest of the group. If the potential to interbreed defines a species, reproductive isolation results in new species. And there are some different types of isolations that can happen. So pre-zygotic reproductive barriers, this occurs before the formation of the zygote or fertilized egg. One of them being habitat isolation. If they live in different locations, they won't be able to interbreed. Temporal isolation, that has to do with time. So maybe they come into mating season at different times of the year, or maybe one of them is diurnal, or awake during the day, and one of them is nocturnal, or awake during the nighttime. Behavioral isolation, they might have different courtship activities. So they give the example of the frog mating calls that differ. When I lived down in Texas, I had this pen full of different types of birds, and I had these really beautiful Chinese golden pheasants, and they kind of look like all the different colors that you'd see in a red macaw, but they're pheasants, and they have very beautiful feathers. Well, I had a male and female pheasant in the same cage, and they were with the chickens, and that male pheasant wanted nothing to do with the female pheasant. He really wanted to breed the chickens. So he would flash his feathers, and he would do his little pheasant dance to the female chickens, and they just were absolutely not interested, but he tried and tried to mate these chickens. Mechanical isolation. In mechanical isolation, their parts physically don't fit together, so their reproductive parts don't fit. And gametic isolation means that their gametes can't unite. So for whatever reason, the gametes will not be able to fuse together to fertilize each other. Then there's post-zygotic reproductive barriers. So they're able to mate, they're awake during the same time of the day, they live in the same area, and their parts fit together and so forth. But there's something wrong with the offspring, or something happens after the fact. So there's hybrid inviability, infertility, hybrid breakdown. So that has to do with the inability of the offspring to then produce offspring or be viable after the point. A species is extinct when all of its members have died. Earth has witnessed 5 mass extinctions in the last 600 million years. During these periods, many species went extinct in a short time. The debris suspended in the atmosphere after a collision dramatically changed the environment, leading to the extinction of many species. Now, humans are changing much of the biosphere. Earth may be experiencing its 6th mass extinction, and that's the data that's been collected from the last 500 years. We talk about the origin of life. So life's origin remains mysterious. We do know that the original atmosphere had no oxygen in it. Initially, we had these pre-amino acid-like structures come together, and then these chemicals started to combine. We started to create hydrophobic and hydrophilic molecules, and membranes eventually formed. Once we had the formation of membranes, we had a separation from something that was inside of the membrane to something that was outside of the membrane. And we started to pack more things on the insides of the membranes. Eventually, we had the development of genetic material and specialized pieces of genetic material that were able to make proteins and put these amino acids together in order to make proteins. And when we had that, the initial organisms were bacteria, and different types of bacteria lived, again, without oxygen, started to produce oxygen as a waste product. Now, those species that could survive in the presence of oxygen were pumping out oxygen as a waste product, and eventually, once oxygen filled enough of the environment, then we had a huge burst in the activity of the origin of new species. Oxygen allowed for increased energy production, so they could make energy in a much more efficient way, and with all of that extra energy, they were able to build more things and create organelles, and all that type of stuff started happening. Eventually, organisms evolved that use water during photosynthesis, producing oxygen as a byproduct. And once oxygen filled the earth, then we started to have a boom in the creation of new species. So the first vertebrates appeared in the fossil record during about 490 to 443 million years ago. Plants already colonized the land during this period. Fish with powerful fins and lung precursors moved onto land. And then early humans arose about 6 million years ago. The only survivor of the human lineage is Homo sapiens, which appeared about 200,000 years ago. Recently, they found a new species of human. Not living, they found the fossils of a new species of human, but it helps piece together the different types of human lineages. If any of you know who this is Lucy, and this is the first erect kind of pre-human skeleton that we've ever been able to identify. This is on display at the Chicago Field Museum. Humans are in a group of placental mammals called primates. Monkeys and apes are also primates. Opposable thumbs, long arms, and upright locomotion are notable adaptations in one or more primate groups. Fossils and DNA help scientists build the primate evolutionary tree. Similarities in bone structure reveal evolutionary relatedness between humans and other apes, and that's supported by molecular and anatomical data. Excuse me. Fossils and DNA evidence have also helped scientists piece together the history of the human lineage.